First, a celebration of one of the greats, Cork's Christy Ring.
On the window, Christy Ring. Ring shakes him off. He's going through and passes the ball. And there goes the lead for Cork.
I thought that you never got to the top in hurling, really. You could do anything with the stick. There was no into doing the impossible, like.
The arrival of Christy Ring brought the creation of the ultimate hurling icon.
Yes, they've come from far and wide. Thousands have come to see Christy Ring.
When you speak of legend, you can equate that to Christy Ring.
He contributed more to the skills of hurling than any man I knew.
He elevated hurling to a living art form.
The talent is a total outlier.
You couldn't just beat the man.
Excitement, well, just look.
Ring strutted the stage of hurling as a colossus.
Ring, to me, was an image.
He had become like O'Cullen, someone not real.
Who now has the unique record of having won 8 All-Ireland medals.
Ring was always there. Next minute is all over.
He was gone, but his legacy lived on.
Cloyne is a town. My grandmother always told me to say it was a town with pride.
Out comes the goalkeeper. Very secure work by Donald O'Keefe.
What's not untypical of villages and towns all over Ireland, as you walk down Chapel Street, which is the main street, you've got the hurling field. Across the road from that, you've got the Catholic Church. I remember from being very young, on one side of the street you had one God, and on the other side you had another God. You know, if you'll forgive me, maybe praying to one that I could be more like the other. When there's limited footage, we only go off of the stories of people. It's the stories keep people alive.
Did you see Christy Ring play? What did he do? He was the name that was spoken of, the first name when people asked about matches.
Word of mouth had stitched such a suit of armour around him that he had become like something out of the Arthurian fables. And I often wonder what it must have been like for him, because he was a dogged, ordinary man. He drove a petrol truck for his living.
On one level, an ordinary man. On another level, an extraordinary one.
I never had any great ambitions about playing hurling. I just played for the love of the game. My house here is actually built on the field, and that's a great help. Run out the gate, you ran to the pitch.
If you look at Christy Ring's formative years, those years are shared with the formative years of the Irish Free State.
The martyred mayors, Thomas McCurtain and Terence McSweeney, the burning of Cork City, battle at Kilmichael and Crossbarry. These are all part of Cork's role in the fight for freedom.
The making of the state, of that independent Ireland, prioritised ideas of Irishness. The GAA and the Catholic Church dominated life.
The whole reason the GAA formed in 1884 was to codify and form structure on the Irish national sports, but also to ensure that young Irish people didn't get persuaded towards foreign or British sports.
My father, he was very interested in hurling. Like, he was a great man to go to matches. He used to take Christy and the Bear, like, up to Cork now, like 40 miles, and up and down. That's probably 9, anyway.
We had been, I suppose, downtrodden victims of imperialism for so many years. The GAA was an institute that could start instilling a sense of pride in young Irish men, give them purpose and meaning. I think that's something that was really missing from young Irish men's lives.
Christy himself was born in Kilboy in a cottage outside of Cloyne. When he was 4, they moved into Spittle Street. The Spitlaners they were referred to.
They were the poorest in Cloyne. That time they hadn't money, they had just enough to buy what they had, bread and jam. And when they began to school years ago, like they say, here's the bread and jam gang.
There was great efforts even in terms of acquiring a hurley to scan the trees for crookers, a branch in the shape of a hurley. The local teacher put up a prize for the pupil with the best marks. Christy put his head down, and when the results were announced, so it so happened that Christy acquired his first proper hurley and ball.
He was kind of earmarked from day one from the school team, a class above the rest.
There was street leagues in Cloyne, so the 4 streets would play.
Not a fine, smiling child that you might get at that age at all, you know. Rather severe in himself, see. There was firemen, you know. I remember one decision I made about a match. He swore, but he never swore. He was crying with temper. he was right, anyway.
The Spitlaners ended up winning, and Christy was captain of that team, which was the first of many, if you will.
A record crowd packs Dublin's great stadium for the big day of the Irish hurling year.
In 1926, Cork won the All-Ireland. That they went on and they won it again in 28. They won it in 29. The country was poor. You didn't have great prospects. But like when Cork were winning All-Irelands, a boy like Christy Ring could see this thing ahead of him that he could almost touch. It was something to aim for.
From an early age, we used to discuss hurling, you know, just poking around the ball.
After mass, after school, in the morning, in the evening, after matches.
Sideline cuts, he surpassed himself at him now.
The grass and hurley be whistling with power over the Bears 70 years ago.
I knew my own limitations. I had one thing in mind, was to be better than anybody else. I just said, I'm going to conquer this now. And I set about to do that.
I think obsession sits at the heart of genius. This desire to constantly get better, becoming brilliant at something. This is an obsession with a game, and it's a glorious obsession for him.
Christy went on to play with the Cork Miners in 38.
He felt a bit intimidated going to Croke Park, playing with Cork for the first time.
There were some remarks from the crowd of, who's that little fella over there?
I was only about 9.5 stone weight. I had nothing to recommend me.
If only endowed with an inch or two more in stature, what a player he would be. This is what they wrote about him as an 18-year-old.
This young fella took my eye. He took over taking sideline pucks and 70s and all that kind of thing. He was taking them of his own free will, full of enthusiasm.
Cork were awarded a 21-yard free in the dying minutes. The nominated free taker was putting the ball down. Cork were 2 points up. Take your point or 3 up, as you would.
Christy came up as the lad was going to take the free. Christy pushed him out of the way, see, I'll take that.
The power that he put into it, like a rocket. They couldn't even see it.
Picked up the ball, went for a goal, and scored a goal. I said, that was madness. No, he said, I knew I could do it.
If only endowed with an inch or two more in stature. By the end of the game, they had to take back their comments.
From the top of Shandon, busy Cork is seen below, astride the pleasant waters of the River Lee.
Hurling in Cork is ferocious loyalty to your club, number one. You joined at 9, 10 years of age. You know, the jersey that you wore then is the jersey you'd wear for the rest of your life.
Accelerate, accelerate, driving it through, accelerate! 2! That's it, we're done!
When did the Glen come then Rovers? When I went to work in the city. The Glen has meant a lot to me. It has a tremendous bearing on my life.
Speed, off the hand, speed! Good stuff, good stuff!
It must have been an enormous decision. There would have to have been a great understanding from the people of Clyne.
I never felt it rested easy on the people who were talking about it, and it wasn't a conversation I very often heard anything about.
Well, I really don't know too much about that now. There was some falling out anyway.
At the same time, there weren't a whole lot of employment opportunities in the Clyne area. One of two things, I suppose, were open to him: either move to Cork or move to England.
He went to Cork then and driving for CID. He was in night duty, didn't he? He was bringing the papers, going for the papers. You meet the fella come from Dublin, you know.
Everybody was aware that Christy Ring was coming to Cork, and everybody was hoping that he would join them.
I don't know how you describe the spirit of the Glen. It's just that they have this tradition of playing the games that should be played hard and tough.
They had some superb players: Jim Young, Jack Lynch. He joined, and his first county medal was won in 1941 when the Glen completed the 8 in a row. Got him off on a very good track.
He would do anything for the Glen, anything, and he did. He lived the Glen. He really did.
The Clyne crest, it's got a star that represents Ring, but within the star there's a little tear, and what that tear represents is the fact that Ring had to leave Clyne.
Christy Ring meant everything to us. He was always a Clyne man.
It's been a year of great changes for all of us. Abroad, the war has raged and as yet shows little signs of abating.
Ireland in the 1940s stayed neutral during the Second World War. It was known as the emergency, and this emergency in Ireland meant rationing.
A lot of men especially were after moving to England for work and things like that. It was a lonesome old time, tell the truth.
The games in the 40s, you know, my mother tells me these were the things that kept the people going, because you needed something to look forward to.
Coming up from this tiny village, the fellas in the Cork senior team, I saw their names and you said, by God.
Coming into a Cork team, by his own admission, he reckons he wasn't as sharp as he might have been.
The title has been away from the southern capital for 10 years. The superior hurling of the men from the Lee Cork pile up their lead.
One thing stood to me, that I played in a Cork team who were winning. When you're winning, nobody takes notice of the duds.
The finalists for the All-Ireland Hurling Championship were Cork and Dublin, the same as last year.
He accumulated the hours, he accumulated the experience.
They cantered to some of those All-Irelands.
The expectations were big at the time. Can we make it 3 in a row?
The manner in which sport was covered changed. Photographs were used. The interplay of text and image.
And this free is taken by Christy Ring, who sends it over the bar.
There might only be one radio in Clyne, and if it was Sunday, they'd be big gathering around the house.
They'd be all cheering. Christy must be at the scoring.
Yes, Mr. Goal for Cork, and it's scored by Christy Ring.
Every year they were expected to carry on and win.
He was able to develop in those years into his greatness.
And he became naturally enough confident and more sure of himself.
Even though they were great names, they weren't as great as I thought they were.
I can be as good as any of these guys, maybe a little bit better.
He got fitter, he got stronger. In 1946, it was his 5th All-Ireland final, it was his first time being captain.
Probably the key moment is 46.
It was touch and go, and Ring got a ball, and it turned the game.
He got that ball in his hand, you know, and he made that bust.
He was brilliant. The ball obeyed him, you could say. And he mesmerised the Kilkenny backs.
He's going through. He's 21 yards out. He's 14 yards out. He takes a shot. And it's a goal. And you've never seen such excitement in all your life.
The 46 All-Ireland is one of the best games I played. Everything went well.
When he brought the cup back, 5,000 and more people lined the streets of Clyne to see him home.
This guy in every asset was a superstar. He was such a good-looking character as well, this blonde hair, blue eyes, like almost the David Beckham of his time. For a fella from a small town in East Cork, to be able to hold so much court in the biggest theatres that we've ever produced. Some men.
In 1972, the Friday before the Munster hurling final, we were playing Clare in Thurles, and I called into a garage. Christy Ring pulled in behind me. Sheer coincidence. For whatever reason, he said to me something about my hurley. And I said, I have it in the car here, Christy. Now, I was very, very fussy about my hurleys altogether. Christy was renowned for his hands. He had very strong wrists. And whatever he did with the hurley, it broke in half. Don't tell anyone. And he brought me up to his own car. There, he said, is that any good to you? And it was a hurley that he had used in the 52 and 53 and 54 All-Ireland finals. Thanks very much, Christy, I said, but I couldn't use it anyway. It was so heavy.
My God, look at that. If that hurley could talk. Full 37 inches, you know, and the way he was able to hurl overhead.
Yeah, that was the thing about him though, like, you know, not that the power, you could see the power in his...
Yeah, he had it in his wrist to hurl long. Ring hurled all the time, full extension.
That's right.
What type of stick was his preference? We might be giving away too many secrets, maybe. It's must a good heel, he liked a good heel. I'd say from 44 on, he had a heavy hurling. You get that extra speed with the pull leg. It was like a feather in his hand. He left nothing to chance. Same with his boots, everything was in order. He was a perfectionist, right?
Yeah, when the balance is right, it's everything.
The balance is everything, yeah.
Yeah.
The balance is everything.
You know, it was like a real sword, a real weapon to him.
Ring was a marksman all the time, like.
You know, he was the man that had to stop.
If you held Ring, you probably won the match.
Ring went there to hurl. The fellas that were trying to mark him, they weren't going to let him make a holy showman. So all of a sudden you had a fierce comeback.
There was a certain sort of kudos for you if you marked Ring.
But Tommy Dodd, of course, was an extraordinarily fit man who was able to move equally as fast, and maybe move faster than Christy.
1949, the first round of the championship, Cork and Tip were drawn together. No backdoors then?
We huddled very hard on each other. He pulled hard and I pulled hard, but I stayed toe to him. Took a bit of doing, but it was done anyhow.
The Knights of Malta were very busy on that occasion, a lot of bandages.
And I could see Ringy being easily rattled by that. You see, the intense performer, any effort at ridicule at all will upset that person completely.
Now, he got a fair shellacking after a couple of years. Some of them used legitimate methods and others didn't.
The ferocity of how they defended. Not a helmet between them. Timber everywhere.
They went out to mark him, not hold him. His father was aside, he was all split. Cuts this way and that way, and his lips were split, his nose was crooked, his ears was all cut, his jaw was all cut.
I remember time his ribs were brought to repair against Tipperary that time. 6 inches of hurling into your rib. I see stairs, almost a blackout. And he played with broken ribs.
The thing about it was that I wasn't very anxious to hit people at all. Like, if you go out with an honest belief, this is a sport. The person you're on is just an opponent.
He was hard-working, he was modest, he was devout. He represents what was considered to be the ideal Irish man.
Heroic. Played with honour. Never pulled a stroke. Nobody could live up to those ideals.
I feel that one of the things that made him great was fear. Fear of not being the best. When fellas annoyed him and when they were destroying his game, he wouldn't allow that to happen, and something ferocious came out in him then.
When he got the hurl in his hands, he was a different man altogether. The old blood boils, he had fire in him then, like.
There were 4 Kilkenny players, won 7 All-Ireland medals between 1904 and 1913. And nobody come near that after that. In 1953, Ring was going for his 7th medal.
Teams Galway on the left, led by Mickey Burke, and Cork skipper Christy Ring leading his men.
There's a thing that happens when you cross a white line, and the desire to win, and how it pushed against other ambitions towards good behaviour that people may have had.
Cork and Galway in 53, it wasn't pretty to watch.
So he made a lot of fellas that were faster, and they were taller, and they were better in several ways. But I never met anyone stronger than myself. For a 50-50 ball, I would get through a stone wall.
Cork strive to increase their lead, but Galway with Mickey Burke subduing the immortal Christy Ring.
Ring was no fool, like. Played the dust with Ring. You were a vast man yourself, like.
They were leading us at half-time, but we came back with point after point. That's when hell blew.
A dropping ball, the clash of the ash.
Mickey Burke was taken off injured. Very few people saw that incident.
It was a ball dropping between John Malloy and Josie Hartnett, and Ring was moving in, and of course I kept shoulder to shoulder with him all the time, and the next thing was he up with the hurdle and straight into my face.
And your teeth were broken when they hit?
Well, I lost, I think it was 2 on the field, and there was another one hanging out that the doctor and they took out, but I had 5 in all. He turned on the final whistle went to come to shake hands with me, and I wouldn't shake hands with him.
We join Christy Ring and trainer Jim Barry in 3 cheers for the banquet.
And there was a real edge there. Now the question stands, to what extent did he transgress both the rules and the spirit of the game by his own actions?
People who sit in judgment don't realise that you can't allow yourself to be intimidated on the pitch. If you do, you're gone.
And we can say that that's the context of its times, and that's fine, but we must say it. He was a driven, born competitor who wanted to win, and it sits beside his greatness and is part of the story. And he's a man who deserves more than just hagiography.
Oh, it's a thing of beauty. What about that for sheer, utter class?
It's amazing to see the change in a hurley in 60, 70 years, which is not a long time. For it to change from this to what it is now is completely different sports nearly. It just looks to me like it's built for striking the ball on the ground.
Ring comes chasing across after the ball. He whips it in, and it's over the bar for another point for Cork.
They rose the ball and done everything that we do today, like the basic skills. I'm not sure how you could pick the ball with this. Fair play to anyone who could use this and get statues built to themselves. So we'd have a cut off it anyway. So this could be interesting. Fair strike off it. I can bet on my own hurley. I might have to change. When I threw up the ball to hit it, I actually didn't know whether I was going to connect or not. But I got a couple of nice strikes there, and it felt nice off the hurley. And you nearly have to concentrate a bit more because you have less margin for error. But with these small bosses, they do fly, because the whole thing is a sweet spot, really. Do you know what I mean? It nearly feels like I could play with it. No, it feels unreal, to be fair. Jesus, yeah, I'll be poking around with this a lot. It's a nice crack off it, in fairness.
Just look at his action as his long legs carry him nearer that world record.
1954, Roger Bannister breaks the 4-minute mile. It was thought that it could never be done. The 8 All-Ireland medal was the 4-minute mile.
They came from all over the world. Never before had such a crowd attended any sports fixture in Ireland.
Ring was the man that commanded the audience.
Thousands came and failed to gain admission. Every possible vantage point was taken up.
No one can see why the crowds flocked to the Colosseum in Rome.
The crowd will be there.
The crowd, buzzing, to say, where is he? Where's Christy?
Is Ring coming? Is Ring coming?
The very minute he put his leg onto the field, the place would vibrate. The place would take off.
You know, here he is into his Coliseum. It was almost like a bull pawing the dust. But then there was a grace in his poise, if you like, the ferocity of the bull, but also the elegance of the matador.
The game is a tough game. Wexford really carried the game to Cork. It's touch and go for a long time. Cork come down the field in injury time. The captain going to break this 4-minute mile of the GAA, his 8th All-Ireland medal, wins the ball, is out on the corner, looks across, has only the one post to aim at, his angle is so narrow.
Mr. Hurling himself, Christy Ring, now has the unique record of having won 8 All-Ireland medals.
Cuchulainn is the great mythological figure of Irish history. He is the warrior hurler. In the modern history of the GAA, the word Cuchulainn is liberally used to describe heroic deeds on the field. And Christy Ring was presented as being the latest exemplar of that continuum.
Oh, jeez. I found it. The book is so old, 1954. Oh, jeez, it's a bit wrecked in this. But there's marvellous photos. A treasure to me. It was 1954. There was a big reception in Clyne. Christy came down and he says, "Here, Jim." He gave me the cup, the All-Ireland Cup. And I brought it down to his house. Something I never forgot. I thought it was a marvellous thrill to be here, Jim. So the cup was nearly as big as myself.
America is an integral part of hurling history. When the stars from home came over, they were afforded a welcome that was simply incredible. And what made America so important, of course, were the generations of Irish people who had emigrated.
You know, they worked in the States for years, but emotionally they were still back in Tipperary or Cork or Limerick or Clare.
The GAA community over there was getting bigger rather than smaller. Fresh people coming into that all the time, bringing over the stories of Ring and bringing over the stories of hurling.
In the great American tradition of sports writing, he was elevated above all others.
Some of the sports writing was akin to poetry almost. Probably unusual to be mythologised while you're alive.
To arrive in New York with all this expectation, Ireland's Cuchulainn.
He was a very introverted personality. He wasn't a success there at all because he wouldn't speak and he wouldn't be flamboyant, you see. Yes. At that time he had arrived as a hurling star, all right. But he suddenly grew tired of the adulation.
I don't think he ever felt himself that he was a star. He knew he was good. He knew he was good and he knew that he was a great hurler.
That to me is the mark of the hero. Someone who can carry the burden of our hopes and fears and dreams and yet remain themselves.
But equally, there's the man in the lorry driving around the place with his hurley on the front seat who gets out and practices.
Christy Ring left school at 14. You would have a sense of imposter syndrome of where is my place. Seems to have followed a route where he was comfortable and content.
It didn't matter whether it was a Munster final or what he was playing the next day. Every Saturday, Ring huddled in Clyne.
We'd be waiting here on Saturday for Christy to come. He'd come out that gate every Saturday about
2:30. We'd hear his car coming because it was the only car around. Next minute he said, Christy's here, Christy's here. Come on, lads, get ready.
It was a battle. You'd get nothing soft from him.
He'd be playing as if the Munster Championship was on.
Play the game as hard as you can and get on with it, no excuses.
Christy wouldn't have much mind for fellas complaining about
No
getting a
mind
bill.
for complaining at all. For Ring, like, you'd try your best.
Playing down the field there, like, you had everything. And with the greatest hurler ever, he's from Clyne and I'm from Clyne. What more do you want?
He was like our brother.
I say, he drove us all on.
His sister come out, come on lads, water. Everybody was cut that time, you know, bleeding and everything. By the time the last fella was drinking, he was drinking practically blood. We'd be hoping he'd be drinking his, you know. That'd be the best of all. I'll shake hands with him before we go home. Best of luck, Christy, tomorrow. Best of luck, Christy. Hope you win out.
The people of Cork went to see Ring. The opposition went to see who could take him down.
This unique thing of winning 9 All-Ireland medals, if any man deserved it, Christy Ring.
Wexford led by Nick Rackard, the boy from Callan, and his brothers Bobby and Willie.
The Wexford team emerged in the early 50s. We had the Rackards. Nicky Rackard is, to this day, a top scorer in championship hurling.
The spotlight of publicity and hero worship has been very definitely on Christy Ring and Nicky Rackard.
This is Pele and Maradona all put together.
The 3 Rackard brothers tagged out in Barry's hotel. They walked up in their full gear with the supporters. My mother, standing outside Croke Park, she said, I remember looking at them. Oh my God, what specimens of men they were.
No comparison between myself and Ring as regards hurling ability. But there was a tremendous comparison between us in the determination to win.
Nicky made a speech, it didn't matter who we were playing. We were going to win.
And the game is on. Christy Ring in front of the goal, take the shot, and he's shouldered over there by Bobby Rackard.
If Bobby could handle Ring, we'd win the game.
A shortish one up to Christy Ring. Christy slips as he goes for the ball, and Bobby Rackard clears it well up the field. Ball hits the shot, and oh, it's a goal! It's a goal! Wexford 1-1, Cork no score. In under it, Bobby Rackard and Christy Ring. Buck comes loose to Ring, 21 yards out. A high one at the point. Now will Christy try for the goal and put Cork into the battle? He tries a low, hard shot, and it's a goal! Christy Ring and Bobby Rackard go to the Ring, shakes them off. He's going through. Hand passes the ball. But no doubt Wexford looked home and dry, but now the father's in the fire. 3.5 minutes of play left. Wexford leading by 2 points.
To the people of Cork, he was a genius. While you had him, you always felt you were going to win.
He got one more chance. He got the ball and there was 2 Wexford men after him.
That's Cork battling back now. Come up the field again. Jerry Kelly up to the Christy Ring. Ring in front of the goal is going through. Blocked by Art Foley, and it's cleared out by Art Foley.
Artie put a hold to the ball and the ball flew up and he batted it out.
Nicky Rackard 21 yards out to take a shot. He takes a shot. It's at the goal. It's a goal. Hats, coats, everything you can think of have gone into the air. And the whole of Croke Park has gone stark staring wild.
When the final whistle went, 2 of them just closed on Ring, 1 from each side. O'Donnell kissing him on the cheek and Bobby had his arm around him.
The Wexford players actually shouldered Christy Ring off the field.
Wexford are recognising not just Ring, but Cork. They'd won everything through the 40s. You are the team and we beat you. But you know what? We respect you greatly and pick up your hero and carry him off the field.
Kennefic has the chance. Great chance. Great goal.
You're kind of the next generation. You want to do what your dad did before you, what your granddad did before you, passing the torch. There was only one club that I was ever going to play for, like. He was just Granda Christy to me growing up. There was never anything extra to it. He was just my granddad. He might not have been there in person, but he was always kind of a presence that was there and talked about.
Command in collecting the ball is one of the essentials of a good hurler. If done correctly, it is a very rewarding move and involves no loss of time whatever.
We're here in the Mardyg down in Cork City in the 1960s. My granddad did a film that was ahead of its time.
Since this is a placed ball, the player should approach it with complete confidence, abandoning all fears of mishitting.
In Louis Marx's film, you see a man demonstrate the skills he had so clearly spent decades perfecting, all the while understanding that perfection was something that was just out of reach.
You never got to the top in hurling. There was always something more to be done.
He didn't fade even to his last few games in 66 and 67. He was still starring, still scoring for the Glen. 47, well, your legs are gone. You can't play at that age. He's the only one who's done it. It's just not possible.
Christy anticipated the ball more, timed his runs much better. He didn't waste his energy.
And you've just got such an array of weaponry as a forward that when you do get it, you can do something positive with it. The college guys used to tease him and you'd call him Old Man Ring. They had a point.
Even the great Christy Ring, you just can't keep going forever and ever just because you tug out. I'd say it was very hard for him to give up. He would put his body on the line. He was so committed.
There was times when you wanted him to retire, and it was a very sad kind of a time. It's a terrible thing. No matter how good you are, there's a time come when you look down at your legs, it's time to hang up the boots.
We were ready to play the semi-final, and I got a call on the Sunday morning. I was selector. He said, I can't play. And when he said that, you didn't question it. I said, are you sure? I am. He said, I can't play. There was no fuss. Nobody ever saw him playing again.
Time goes against all of us. Yeah. That's the game, mate. That's the game.
The festival was started in Thurles, birthplace of the GAA, in 1971, and this year it was Cork's turn. Christy Ring, one of Cork's former greats, had the secrets of Cork's former hurling glories to pass on.
There's always a time comes when you have to say, well, your family or your home has to be reckoned with as well.
He had life in perspective, and his family was first. He brought us to school in the morning, he brought us home at dinner, he brought us back after dinner, picked us up at 3 o'clock after school, myself and my sister, every day. Hurling wasn't part of that at all. My dad didn't influence what my mother did, or my mother didn't influence what my dad did. The relationship was the most important. It was just normal family life. Well, I went everywhere with him. He could make a game of anything, whether we were throwing stones or whatever on the beach. He expected us to play without saying it. It was never an issue of forcing me or anything like that. It was just the hurleys were there, the balls were there. If we were going on holidays to Kerry and there was a a match in Killorglin, he'd have to stop in and look at it. Some 10 minutes of it anyway, back into the car and on then.
I think it was only a question of time, really, that Christy would be interested in performing as a selector at intercounty level.
He wasn't over-impressed with our abilities, and he wasn't slow to let us know that. I remember being a sub in the first round in 1976. We were losing to Tipperary, and he came in, I was standing there, and he said, "Imagine giving up my holidays in Butlins for this."
That Cork team, very talented, but it wasn't happening. There was something missing.
A lot of the coaches hadn't been intercounty players themselves, and you'd get very little advice going out onto the field.
76, just before we went out in the field, he pulled me aside and he said,
"You're playing Wexford in an All-Ireland final. Take your 3 steps with the ball in your hand," he said, "and take 3 shagging more with them, because you won't be blown by this Leinster referee."
Ringy's words flashed into my head.
Ray Cummins getting inside this time. A kick and a goal.
He scored the goal on the 10th step.
And the All-Ireland champions are Cork.
Christy, what did you feel like being a selector watching that final?
Not bad at all. That's what we're there for. We sorted it out anyway.
A lot of counties would be happy with 1 win. Other counties, 1 wouldn't be enough.
77 final, we were pucking around before the start of the game. I hit a shot and Shawnee turned, caught him on the nose.
Shawnee Leary is injured before the game has started.
Ringy caught him by the jersey, said, "Leary, you don't play with your nose, get out there."
Shawnee Leary, high, and he sent it over the bar. Shawnee Leary, and it's a goal! A goal for Cork and Shawnee Leary. Maybe Shawnee should get a knock on the nose before every game.
All-Ireland champions 2 years in a row. They'll be all out to get us this year.
Christy Ring would have been saying that without beating Kilkenny, that team would not be proven.
Christy Ring was a sports psychologist in his own right.
He'd stand at the door of the dressing room, hold up a hurley, he'd have a fist, and he'd say, "We're from Cork."
His presence was inspirational.
Kilkenny have never beaten Cork when we were ready for them. And we are ready for them now.
Jimmy Barry went big. Did go hard and tried to block his way. Jimmy Barry shot right across the top of the ball.
He didn't believe in being second. Second was last for Christy. He put massive pressure on himself, especially at his age.
Jimmy Barry went big with the shot that's low. And it's the goal! Jimmy Barry went big, the scorer of the goal that can win in All-Ireland. Barry winning for the goal, and Cork were the All-Ireland champions.
His overarching presence of Cork hurling, right, that had lasted, we'd say, from his minor days of end of the 30s, had gone right into the end of the 70s.
No doubt he was thrilled at the applause of the people. That deep down that he loved to be loved by the people when everyone loved him.
The 78 homecoming was on the South Mall. The chant went up, "We want Ring." A spontaneous chant from the street. And he was given the cup and he said 76, 77, 78, 79. And the place went beluga.
On the banks of my
So I was at home on the Friday, and the phone rang.
The death has taken place of the famous Cork hurler, Christy Ring. He was 58. Mr. Ring collapsed and died in Cork this afternoon.
Got out of the car by all accounts and just collapsed on the ground.
It was the biggest funeral seen in Cork for over 50 years.
Some old men said it was even bigger than the funerals of Terence McSweeney and Tomas McCurtain during the Troubles.
To think a man of Christy's strength, toughness, can just pass away like that.
There were 60,000 people in Clyde that day. 60,000 people in Clyde.
Ireland, going back through the years, through the centuries, the tribes were led by the chieftain, and Ring was our chieftain.
Willie John came up to me and he says to me, he says, "You shoulder Christy." So I shouldered from the cross down. The thought to put him down was a sin. The magic was gone out of the field. Never got over it. Never got over it.
As long as young men will match their hurling skills against each other on Ireland's green fields, as long as young boys swing their commands of the sheer thrill of the feel and the tingle in their fingers of the impact of ash on leather, as long as hurling is played, the story of Christy Ring will be told, and that will be forever.
I played for a lot of years. Sometimes I feel I'd played too long. Felt I'd done enough, and I'm sure I have. It's about time they stopped talking about me.
23 years of excellence with your county and 27 years of excellence with your club. And that's the yardstick in the game of hurling. It's an outlier, a statistical anomaly. Maybe it shouldn't even have happened.
That's it. Ball the hand. That's it. Taking the hand. Good.
In the family, you would often, hear my dad especially, like, where's the Ring blood going to come out, like? Where is Ring going to emerge again? Who's going to match up to Christy? But always watching, always watching.
Over on RTE2 from 4:35 this afternoon, we've live coverage of the Women's Euro game between Switzerland and the Netherlands. But here on One, the action is much more homegrown in the All-Ireland hurling final.